Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Let me introduce myself. My full name is Alfi Dien S. People usually call me Dina. Name 18821500049. Study program English Education, Pancasakti University. I'm here to share the knowledge of intermediate English grammar material about active and passive voice. Sentence structure. As view. The police arrested the Roberts. The police is subject. Arrested is verb and the Roberts is object. Note, a verb is an action. The performer of the action is called the subject, and the one on whom that action is performed is called the object. Next slide. Verbs and voice. Voice is the form a verb takes to indicate whether the subject of the verb performs or reverts the action. There are two types of voice. One active voice and passive voice. Active voice. Active voice is used to show that the subject of the sentence is performing or causing the action, because the subject does or acts upon. The verb in such sentences, the sentences are said to be the active voice. Active voice. These examples show that the subject is doing verb's action. 1. The dog jumped onto the boy. The dog is subject. Is doing the jumping is verb. And 2. Christy will give a book report to the class. Christy is subject. Is doing the giving is verb. 3. The computer eat my paper. The computer is subject. Is doing the eating is verb. And next slide, passive voice. In a passive voice sentence, the subject and object flip-flop. The object becomes the passive recipient of the action because the subject is being acted upon or is passive. The sentences are said to be in the passive voice. Passive voice. These examples show the subject being acted upon by the verb. 1. The boy was jumped on by the dog. Boy is the subject. Was being jumped on, verb 3. 2. A book report will be given by Christy to the class. Book report is the subject. Will be given is the verb 3. 3. My paper was eaten by the computer. Paper is subject. Was being eaten is verb 3. Why passive voice use verb 3? Because patron passive voice is verb 3. Next slide. Sentence active voice and confirm passive voice. Millions of viewers watched the World Cup. Passive voice. The World Cup was watched by millions of viewers. Reason to use the active voice. Most readers prefer to use active voice because it's more direct. Compare active. The waiters dropped the tray of wood. And the passive, the tray of wood was dropped by the waiter. The active voice sentence patterns propels the reader forward through you writing, thus avoiding weak prose. When to use the passive voice? In the general, the passive voice is less direct, less forceful, and less concise than the active voice. Use the passive voice in the following situation. Use passive voice when you don't know or don't want to reveal the performer of an action. And use passive voice when you want to emphasize the receiver of an action. And the next examples, awkward passive. My bicycle was repainted by John. Deliberate passive. My bicycle was repainted. The performer is not mentioned and the emphasis is on the bicycle. Form of passive voice verb. The passive voice requires a double verb and will always consist of a form of the verb to be and the past participle, usually the en or ed or t forms of another verb. Example: active, John baked the bread, and passive, the bread was baked by John. Was is the form of the verb be. Writers should be familiar with the forms of to be, often called linking verbs, so that they can easily identify the passive voice in their work. Review the forms of to be. It am, is, was, were, be, being, and been. Note: the forms of to be in the examples of the verb to kind in the various forms of the passive voice is kicked, had been kicked, was kicked, is going to be kicked, is being kicked, will be kicked, has been kicked, can be kicked, was being kicked, should be kicked. And next slide. Often passive voice sentences will contain a by, price, indicating who or what performed the action. Passive sentences can be easily transformed into active sentences when the object of the preposition by is moved to the subject position in the sentence. And next, tenses pattern is active and passive below. Simple present, pattern active, subject plus verb 1 plus s or es. Pattern passive, subject plus is or am or are plus verb 3. Simple past, pattern active, subject plus verb 2. Pattern passive, subject was or were plus verb 3. Simple future, pattern active, subject will plus verb 1. Pattern passive, subject will plus be plus verb 3. Present continuous, pattern active, subject plus is or am or are plus verb ing. Pattern passive, subject is or am or are plus being plus verb 3. Past continuous, pattern active, subject was or were plus verb ing. Pattern passive, subject was or were plus being plus verb 3. Present perfect, pattern active, subject plus has or have plus verb 3. Pattern passive, subject plus has or have plus been plus verb 3. Past perfect, pattern active, subject plus had plus verb 3. Pattern passive, subject plus had plus been plus verb 3. Future perfect, pattern active, subject will plus have plus verb 3. Pattern passive, subject plus will plus have plus been plus verb 3. Present perfect continuous, pattern active, subject has or have plus been plus verb ing. Pattern passive, subject plus has or have plus been plus being plus verb 3. Past perfect continuous, pattern active, subject plus had plus been plus verb ing, pattern passive, subject plus had plus been plus being plus verb 3. Future perfect continuous, pattern active, subject will plus have plus been plus verb ing, pattern passive, subject will plus have plus been plus being plus verb 3. Modal auxiliary, pattern active, subject plus modal, can plus verb 1. Pattern passive, subject plus modal plus be plus verb 3. Example, passive, the cookies were eaten by the children. Sentence active, the children eat the cookies. And passive, the tunnels are dug by the gophers. Sentence active, the gophers dug the tunnels. And next, I want you to try to do practice by scaffolding active or passive sentences. Example number 1, Louis made the chocolate cake. Is the active or passive? The answer sentence active because the sentence use verb to. And now you guys try to continue. And next, so many explanation may be usable, and thank you for watching and listening. If you anyone wants to ask, you can comment, and see you again. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.